I like that you just said, I knew I liked you. Like there was a reason I didn't know why until just now.
It's been over a year. And
that's why I like you.
And welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Erin Green.
I am Michael Gray.
Hello.
Hello. What is going on? I'm just going to repeat everything you say.
I was just going to call you out. Do you realize sometimes you repeat what I say and then you have intelligent, ideas and things to add to the conversation for sure.
You don't have to sound surprised.
But you do tend to repeat what I say, and in a sing-songy kind of voice too. It's very cheerful. I'm not criticizing.
I'm sorry for being playful and happy.
It's not a criticism.
Hello, welcome to Middleish.
Oh, now you've got your.
I hope your day is going better than mine.
Phone sex operator voice. My day is off to a pretty good start. I've got coffee and I had a piece of homemade sourdough with my breakfast this morning, and the sun is shining, and I got some kitty snuggles this morning. I'm doing okay.
Okay.
How about you?
I was having a great morning until my partner here was like, it's amazing. Sometimes you say smart things,
I think
you say what I say, and then every once in a while, I'm like, hey, that wasn't dumb. Good job, bud. Proud of you.
We should probably do an episode on what people say versus what they actually hear, because that was a pretty good example of taking my words and turning them into a different message altogether.
That was verbatim.
I think that would be a good episode. What do you think, listeners? Should we talk about that? Because actually,
what do you think, listeners? Should we talk about that?
People do that, don't they? Like somebody says something.
I think we all.
And then
that.
They're like, "What I heard was, this is how it was received," and our brains sometimes will take it and shift around words and the emphasis, and all of a sudden we're like, "What was that?"
I think that's our. I think that's, not in everything, obviously. If you're like, I like hamburgers, I'm not like, oh, what's that supposed to mean? But like,
you hate hot dogs. Is that what that means?
Yeah. Huh? You're a hot doggist. Is that what you are? But it's just interesting. Like I've noticed that just in marriage, right? Like just a conversation with your spouse. And it's like, later on you're talking about it and it's like, well, you were saying this and this. It's like, no, I wasn't. I was saying this and this, but just, I think perspectives and experiences and all that stuff. I think we all have like so many filters that communication goes through before it gets to us. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's why it's good to say like that active listening. Like, so here's what I hear you saying. Is that what you're saying? Here's what I'm hearing. Is this right?
Yeah.
Or is this wrong? Yeah.
And that's
it's easy to be like,
point.
well, no, you said this and this is what I heard. And so that's what it was. And then the other person's like, yeah, not at all. But now we're operating in two different spaces.
Right. So now I can see why you got so upset, or now I can see why you had that reaction you had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So see, Michael, it's not a bad trait that you repeat some of the things that I say or that you hear to make sure that you get them right. And in a sing-songy, cheerful voice. Don't we all love that? Yes.
Well, I thought so. But now I'm second guessing. Because remember when you were like, what you do that I hate? That's what I
think heard, I think we should do an episode on that. I think that would be good. We should probably have a psychologist on to talk about that.
We should. Do I know a psychologist that would
think on that one?
Yeah, that could be really fun.
Idea. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't need to do this on the air. Hey, you guys want to watch me think for a minute?
Or listen to you think?
Yeah. Listen to me think.
We should dive right in.
Yeah.
Today's episode. Because I'm sure you all love hearing Michael and I catch up and chit chat, but you're here to listen to our Middleish topic of the day. And this one actually was brought by a listener. Her name is Stacy.
Stacy, who I actually grew up
Brookings, Oregon.
Yeah, I grew up across the street from her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like we played together all the time as kids.
Oh, yeah, she does say that in her email.
Yeah, she was a year younger than me, and then her older sister Andrea was, I don't know, 2 or 3 years older, I think, than her. And so my siblings and I, literally like right across the street. We played together all the time as kids. So I know Stacy fairly well. Well,
she wrote us a great email and reminded, Michael of their history. And then I'm not sure if we met. Maybe we played softball together. So there's a club called the House Harriers. For those of you who are not familiar, the phrase is it's a drinking club with a running problem. So basically this group of just totally eclectic people come together once a week and run a trail that is set by someone else in the group. And then you all meet back at a bar or a park or someone's house and drink beer and sing songs and heckle each other. And it's good fun. It's just a social group. So she says she didn't run the hash, but maybe we played softball together. So I'm trying to picture her. I would need to probably see a picture, but anyway, thank you, Stacy, for writing in. And her big question was, she wants to talk about pre-workout supplements, recovery powders. What's the deal with amino acids? So we're going to kind of get into this. Now, I don't know how far in, we're going to talk about supplements in general.
Right.
And we're going to hit on each of those different specific items she asked about. But yeah, I think this is a topic I hear about all the time from clients. They ask me all the time about supplements. I don't know if it's the same with you.
Yeah, it's pretty common. I mean, the supplement industry is, I don't know how many millions or billions of dollars it is, but it's
I have that figure for you.
Successful. Do you?
The global dietary supplement market size was valued at 140.3 billion with a B billion dollars US dollars in 2020 and is expected to expand at a compound annual growth rate of 8.6% from 2021 to 2028. So this was from Grandview Research. I'll put the link in the show notes if you're into like economic data and that kind of thing. And then I read several other I found an article that said in the US alone, and this was taken in 2018, I think it was like a $90 billion industry just in the US. So we have, what is that? Like 60% of the global market share in dietary supplements.
Yeah.
And that was in 2018. Huge. So who knows? So yeah, it's a huge, huge industry. And I want everybody to just let that sink in, because as we talk through things, I think that's a really important thing to remember, is that the dietary supplement industry has a ginormous market share and is out to make money. That's what they do. They're not into changing lives and making people healthier and,
for the most part.
I know there are probably supplement companies out there that do have that mission and they really believe they're improving people's lives. I think they exist. Totally. I'm not trying to discredit every supplement manufacturer or brand, because there are some that I ascribe to as well. And that I'm like, okay, this is one that I trust. At the same time, I'm well aware that there's a ton of marketing that goes behind it, and it's about making money. So
yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's a money-making machine. I have clients bring it up, not super often, but pretty regularly, usually it's just questions about like, hey, so I saw this thing, or my friend told me about this. What do you think? Because I'm pretty straightforward, with my clients, usually pretty early on about like, hey, I don't think you need to worry about this stuff right now. Let's look at what you're eating, and let's start there. But at the same time, I mean, people are going to have questions. There's always the latest and greatest supplement coming up. There's always new versions. There's always the old ones rebranded, all that kind of stuff. And so it's just the supplement industry and fitness industry and diet industry in general, but the supplement industry are really good at making things look new and shiny and really making you believe that you need the thing that they have to sell, so it comes up pretty often, with clients. Yeah. It's not a stranger of a conversation.
And I think one of the other things to keep in mind is that dietary supplements, the reason they have that shiny appeal is because they're so simple. Here you have this desired health change that people want in their lives, some kind of outcome that they hope will happen. And to achieve that, all you have to do is take this little capsule every morning, or to take this drink,
powder in your drink
before and after your workout, or, whatever. And so then you'll, feel like this celebrity claims to feel, or you'll look like this model claims to look, or you'll have all of these, maybe reported benefits that are listed on the label or in the magazine ad or on the webpage. So I think that is the big draw, is that people are really seeking, how can I have that immediate result? And if there's one thing you've gathered from listening to Michael and I, it's that consistency and patience and finding something that's sustainable for you is really where the magic happens with health change. So, but supplements can play a role, and we'll talk about the ones that we think, maybe are worthwhile and that you could investigate yourself. And then which ones are probably hugely overrated.
Right. Yeah. Because there are some that I think are hugely overrated, but also just like you don't ever need to purchase these. Like there's no reason for you to spend your money on this stuff. But like you said, Aaron, like I think the supplement industry is about as like pinnacle as it gets with that like magic bullet kind of thing, right? Like I just want the easy thing, and then everything's better, right? And we see that a lot with supplements in a variety of ways, whether it's pre-workout stuff or branched chain amino acids or turmeric, all kinds of stuff. Like everything's the latest and greatest, and it's going to fix everything for you. It's like the I feel like the sort of the worst offender in sort of our, how would you say it? Like, I don't know. The worst offender, I guess it would be like Dr. Oz. Like, I feel like he is continually peddling something that is the latest and greatest. And if you just take this goji berry, powder, then, you'll never have cancer and, whatever. It taps into that want for ease and a quick fix and an answer that is something other than, hey, you got to invest in yourself for a long time.
Or an answer that is, unfortunately, we don't have a solution for that. We don't have a cure for that. We don't have a quick fix for that. Achy joints. I mean, shit, that could be caused by 1,000 things. It could be caused by age, overuse, some, deterioration of the joint itself. There's a lot of different things, the weather that could cause that. But people are like, I'm going to take that glucosamine chondroitin instead of, well, maybe let's try some different movement practices, or maybe try,
move your body.
Investing in a better pair of shoes, or, maybe let's try some other things, wearing warmer clothes instead of like pantyhose so that your knees are protected better. Like, I mean, there's like a 1,000 things you could try.
Should I not be wearing pantyhose right now?
Yeah. Take those pantyhose off.
Whoa.
Not on the air.
Whoa. Thought this is a family show, Aaron. Take those pantyhose off right now.
I was just more like startled.
Slower.
God. I was attempting to sound like I was kind of scolding you, like, this is a family show. Like maybe
it's
I guess,
just my filters,
you could wear
but not how it came
pantyhose
across.
if you want, I guess. So yeah, back to
pantyhose.
supplements.
Yeah.
Let's start with, do you want to start with I pulled up the most popular supplement searches. This was from an article that I found on PubMed that talked about, it was in 2020, this article was written. So guess what? The most popular, I mean, you have it in front of you, but would you have guessed the most popular supplement search?
I'm staring at it. I'm shocked.
I know.
I would have guessed this was maybe top
protein.
10.
I would have thought protein would be number one, or BCAAs.
Yep. I would have guessed protein before this. I would have guessed BCAAs. I would have guessed creatine. I would have guessed fish oil.
Right.
Turmeric. Like there's a bunch of things.
COVID going on. Magnesium. Magnesium was the number one hit. And this was a study that looked at Google search entries. And so it said magnesium was 23.72 times more popular than lutein. Protein was 15.2 times more popular, and iron was also a very popular one. So those are the top three, according to this study, and that protein, vitamin, and mineral supplements were also like the three most popular categories. So that, not herbs or fatty acids or enzymes or anything, although those were other categories people search for. So I think it's helpful just to have this background too, and just see what people are searching for when they're looking for information on supplements. And it does shock me because most of the supplements I get questions about are sports supplements, like you just listed all these things, that people ask about. So I think maybe we could talk about the pre-workout first. You want to talk about pre-workout supplements? Do you get a lot of questions on those? Have you ever used one?
I did. Maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, but not for honestly, probably 7 or 8 years. I tried them a few times. And so my personal experience with it is I don't think I used them enough to get familiar with them. I noticed like the warm skin and the tingling, that kind of stuff. I didn't notice really any difference in my workout from if I was well rested and well hydrated and maybe had some coffee in me. I didn't really notice anything. I know some people swear by them. I'm not going to discount anyone's experience. I think a lot of times there is that sort of placebo effect with a lot of these. I'm taking this and I feel a little something, so I think it's great. But I don't. I don't use it at all. And I don't get many questions about it just because I don't work typically with many people who are like in that bodybuilder, gym rat kind of demographic. I work more with, like just parents who are wanting to feel better and, people who are in, 60s and 70s who just want to recover from a surgery, that kind of stuff. So I don't get asked about it too much. Do you?
I do. And mainly because people are, a lot of the athletes I work with are in the endurance world. And if you're training for a half Ironman or an Ironman, chances are you're pretty tired going into your next session, especially when you're in that build phase. So I think people are looking for, how do I get that wake up, that energy boost? Maybe they're not getting enough sleep to fully recover. And so that's an issue. So they're looking for something to kind of wake up their system. I think there's also this psychological sort of effect that happens when you have certain sessions that are geared toward, performance, like you have to hit these metrics, or not have to, you're aiming for these metrics. This is the intention of the session. And it can mess with your head, because especially if you look at it like I once did, like it's pass fail, like you hit this number of watts on the bike, otherwise you didn't, do the workout. So I think sometimes people are looking for that edge, like what can I possibly do, to execute this workout. Some people are looking for the extra fat burning benefits or muscle building benefits. And with most of these, multi-ingredient pre-workout supplements is what, or MIPS is what they've been called in the literature, is there's a few problems. One is that there's really no standardization of ingredients. So a multi-ingredient pre-workout could have a whole variety of amino acids, creatine, caffeine, artificial sweeteners. Maybe it has carbs, maybe it doesn't have carbs. There's, herbal additives and different minerals. And I mean, there's all kinds of different ingredients that could be in these. So there's no like standardized proprietary sort of blend that says this combination in these amounts is actually what can lead to enhanced performance in these areas. And let's also acknowledge that if you are doing a heavy powerlifting workout versus if you have like a cycling session versus if you're doing, a long, steady run session. I mean, depending on the nature of your workout, you might be looking for a different, mix of ingredients if they were studied in that capacity, but we just don't have enough literature on any of this, like the amounts or the types of ingredients and the type of exercise you're doing. And if it's okay to do long-term, much of the research says up to 8 weeks has been shown to be pretty safe with most of these, but beyond that, who knows? So there's just a lot of, I present all of that at once just to say there's a lot of lacking evidence here. Like we don't know.
Yeah. And on top of that, like there's absolutely the development of tolerance to these, right? Like,
sure.
I've known people that are taking like 4 scoops because they're like, otherwise I don't feel anything. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Like, first of all, just like so much like stimulant in their body just to feel like they can work out, right? Or have a good workout or like they're prepared to work out. And that's probably not a good thing most of the time. I would argue that a better pre-workout is getting good sleep, like being like fueled well, with your food, right? Being hydrated, and stress management and a good warm up. Like people discount the importance and value of a good warm up, like even mentally, like I tell my clients, like, if we've got like whatever their warm up is, hey, I want you to go through this once, unless if you're not there mentally, go through it again, maybe a third time, right? Because a lot of times, like just getting into movement and getting in tune with your body and how it's feeling and that kind of stuff. A lot of times I think that's the best pre-workout because our brains get more activated. Our bodies are more warmed up, right? Like we can feel like our tissues getting warmer, our body temperature raising a little bit. We can feel the benefits of like, lubrication and joints and they're moving a little bit easier and all this stuff that these pre-workouts claim to do. We can do just from spending 5 minutes of just moving our bodies in intentional ways, know? And so that would be my pre-workout supplement is all those things.
Yep.
Do what you know you're supposed to do, take care of yourself and spend some time warming up and you'll probably be just fine.
And that elevation of heart rate also sends the signals to your brain that we're getting ready to move and to like, it wakes up the body naturally.
Like
so, and I also think that getting, there's a fair amount of research that says getting sunlight early in the day, as early as you can, depending on where you live. Maybe the sun doesn't, rise until 8 a.m. or whatever. But getting that sunlight in your face, early in the day can be helpful for waking up too. I think a lot of times what people love about that pre-workout is I see 2 reasons. One is the waking up effect of usually the caffeine that's in that. And then second is that whether it's a perceived or actual benefit of, I just took this thing, I'm ready to go. So it's super easy. It's convenient. You take the powder. I'm done. Okay. I'm ready. So I think people sometimes, exactly. People they want that easy, like I'm ready to go kind of feeling. It's something that you can do in 5 minutes as you're driving to the gym or as you're, before you get dressed for your workout, you just slug this, whatever juice or powder of some kind. And I did want to just read real quick on this, this study I pulled up, and this is from 2018. In the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition. So it was one of the few that I could find that actually specifically looked at multi-ingredient pre-workouts. And it does say that there's some promise in muscular endurance and subjective mood, though mixed results have been reported, especially on force and power production. So again, the type of workout matters. And I think it's really interesting, the subjective mood piece, okay, which you and I already talked about, that, you know, sometimes it's just that feeling you get when you take your power juice and all of a sudden you're ready to go. And their conclusion, I might have stolen that from Stacy. She said something about she
did, didn't she?
Yeah, she said power juice.
That's right.
I stole that from our listener. But their conclusion says, it appears that multi-ingredient pre-workout supplements have promise as an ergogenic aid for active individuals, though further information is required regarding long-term efficacy and safety in a wider variety of populations. So basically, we need more research. And that's what I tell people all the time. You know, I operate under that first do no harm kind of thing. So you have to really look at the ingredients and the amounts and pick that apart. If it's even listed, some of these, I mean, the supplement industry is unregulated, people. So
wildly, like, not just like, they're all kind of the same neighborhood. It's like, it's everywhere. So, it's the Wild West.
Right.
It's not a good thing.
And it's up to the consumer. It's up to the consumer to know what you're putting in your body. The entire burden lies with the consumer. And that's just effed up, if you ask me. But it just shows you like how many combinations and possibilities are out there on store shelves that people can just buy. And so I'm incredibly leery of the supplement industry on the whole, especially when you get into elite sport, because then we have the whole conundrum of contaminated supplements. You know, sometimes athletes take something that was contaminated and they didn't know it, and then they fail a drug test or something. And there's this whole list on the World Anti-Doping Association website that talks about the different things that are allowed and not allowed, and in what forms and in what dosages. So, I mean, it really gets convoluted very quickly, and it's
real quick,
honestly, so much easier to just say, I'm not really going to dabble in that. Like, especially the multi-ingredient proprietary blend kind of BS. Yeah.
Okay. I want to move on from pre-workouts in a minute, because I know we got a lot to do, but I do have a question real quick.
Oh, yeah.
So you have this link. I haven't read it, but about dry scooping. God. I haven't read about that, but I know a lot of people who do it. Like,
really? I had never heard of it.
I just scoop into the mouth, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Okay. So yeah. So before I moved to Texas roughly 2 years ago, like, I was in the gym all the time, right? I worked in a gym all the time. Now I'm at home, so I'm not in a gym as much, and I was a trainer there. I'd been there for 11 years, knew everybody for the most part. So I was just around people a lot, and a lot of people would take their pre-workout this way. They'd just scoop it and right in the mouth and choke it down. Yeah. Like, it was very, very common to see. So I haven't read this article, but I'm curious to see what it says, because it does say deadly dry scooping.
Yes. So as I am looking for, you know, certain data and, you know, numbers-based kind of information and evidence when we're preparing for some of these more technical episodes, I will look for, you know, I'll Google search peer-reviewed journals, and I'll look on Google Scholar, and I'll go to reputable sources. So this is from newsmedical.net. So it's a news and medical life sciences newsletter. And they talk about dry scooping, and this was published in October of this year. So this is a new alert. And it's basically saying that there's a video demonstration on a very popular social media platform that particularly popular among teens, that's showing dry scooping. And there's a study abstract that will be presented at the American Academy of Pediatrics National Conference this year to talk about this. And basically, it says extremely high risk of overconsumption and accidental inhalation of the pre-workout powder. So those are the two major concerns. And that also it's supposed to be taken with a volume of water to aid in digestion, to dilute it. And so when you're loading your body with this pre-workout, and God knows what's in this pre-workout anyway,
it's not
can
regulated,
lead to inhalation,
right?
And I would think could lead to some like choking concerns. I mean, have you tried like just swallowing a big scoop full of powder? Like, I think it would be really hard.
I ever have. Because that sounds like a stupid thing to do. Why would I do that? Choking on powder. Nothing. You know what I have done?
So here's another, what's that?
Like eating a powdered donut. I've gotten that powder on the back of my
throat. Oh, right. And you're like gagging. So it also says the videos also feature the mixing of pre-workout with substances such as energy drinks and alcohol. So who knows if the dry scooping itself is, I mean, it sounds like a pretty risky thing and just awful anyway, terrible experience. Why would you do that? But then it also is sounding like this is another issue with, I think, the fitness and supplement industry is this pervasive encouragement of risky behaviors and mixing of seemingly, kind of innocuous and relatively, mainstream kinds of things like energy drinks. You can get those at any gas station or grocery store. Alcohol, same thing. Pre-workout, basically any, pharmacy shelf or grocery store. You put all the shit together though, and we're, all of a sudden we talked about this with the dose makes the poison and with our toxic sugar episode. I mean, the combination of things makes a big difference in how they interact in your body. So anyway, that was the dry scooping. Be aware of that. If you're a parent and if you're a teen, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. So what did she mention next? I don't have that pulled up in front of me.
Protein.
Brotein. Brotein. Get yourself some protein. Yeah, let's talk about protein. So let me ask you this first. What are your thoughts on a protein supplement? Because I have my own. What are yours?
So I think protein supplements are helpful in certain situations. I think if somebody is not consuming enough protein in their diet because of whatever reason, there's a lot of different reasons why this happens, whether it's food choice or availability or schedule or whatever, then I think that a protein supplement could be helpful for that individual. I think a protein supplement could be helpful for high performing athletes who are at risk of inadequate protein consumption and are really looking for that extra edge. We talked about this on one of our latest episodes where you asked me about that recovery window. Like, is it that important to take something like right within
meal
that,
timing.
30 minutes? Yeah. Yeah. The nutrient timing for teens, I think. And I think that becomes important when
episode 71,
when people are aiming for to get the very best out of their bodies, when they have 2-a-days or even 3-a-day workouts. Again, if they're at risk for not eating enough and not getting enough calories, super convenient and easy to take that protein powder versus trying to pack a sandwich and, bring that stuff with you. And then the final reason I would say that I might recommend a protein supplement would be for perimenopausal and menopausal women. It can be helpful to have some of those branched chain amino acids, which I think we'll get into a little bit more of that. The BCAAs can be helpful in mitigating some of the effects of that low estrogen in the brain. So there's some research that says that at the blood-brain barrier, there's some interaction there with those branched chain amino acids that can actually decrease some of the symptoms that women going into menopause might experience.
Right.
So those are the main reasons I would probably talk about protein supplementation with a client. I certainly am not like a blanket recommendation kind of person where take this no matter what your circumstances are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Regardless. Like, and I think that's probably I would say safe to say for both of us, just in general with supplements, is like, I don't think we would blanketly, is that how you say that?
Blanketly, that's a good word. I like that.
Endorse any supplement. I think it really does. It's dependent on the individual and the situation. I mean, there are some that I am more likely to recommend or be in favor of, but that doesn't mean across the board by any means. There are some that I am probably more likely against, but that doesn't mean across the board. So I'm pretty much the same boat with protein. I mean, I don't think it's something that you need, but I think it can be really helpful from that convenience standpoint. I think if someone is, needs a quick and convenient, easy meal, like, hey, a protein shake and an apple, awesome, great.
Right.
If someone's needing to increase, fruit and veggie consumption, I think making a more comprehensive shake with spinach and berries and that kind of stuff can be a great way to do that, begin to build, the amount of these vitamins and nutrients that we're getting in our body. And I think sometimes just people like them. And you know what, if you like them, sure, this could be something we use on a somewhat regular basis because it's easy, it's convenient. You can make them super delicious. I think that can be really helpful. I think if, like you said, like with an athlete, if someone's needing to get in like more calories, this can be a great way to do that because you can take it on the go. You can load them with fats and stuff to really get a high caloric volume in. If someone's looking to build muscle or just gain weight for health reasons, I've worked with people who just, they need to put some weight on their body. So I think there are a lot of situations where I am in favor of it. I don't think it should be relied on for your protein for the day. I'll talk to people like, I have 3 a day just to get my protein in. It's like, okay, well, I'm glad you're getting your protein in. I'm glad you're being conscious about that, but let's look at a variety of sources. I don't think it's an answer to your protein needs, but it sure can be a good benefit. I'm in favor of it in a lot of situations.
Yeah. And just 2 more points, because you mentioned, you could have like a protein shake with a piece of fruit or something for a meal. Our friend Leslie, who has gone through bariatric surgery, that is something that she leans on very heavily in order to get the right kind of nutrients in her body for her specific circumstance. And that's something, again, talking about supplementation, there's special populations out there that are obviously going to need to supplement with certain items. We're talking about the population as a whole. But for example, people who are status post bariatric surgery might need to supplement with a variety of different things because of malabsorptive issues and dietary restrictions and that. So just keep that in mind. One more thing I wanted to talk about as we're talking about protein supplements is make sure you check out the ingredient list and claims on that, because you want to look for something that just has the protein and maybe like a lot of them have non-nutritive sweeteners in them. Some of them have ascorbic acid in them to prevent browning. I mean, who knows, but you want it to be the protein ingredient and something, not like some proprietary blend with an asterisk and then all this weird stuff. So whey protein is probably the number one that I will point people toward because it tends to be the gold standard for muscle protein synthesis. Doesn't mean that the other protein powders are bad or less effective. It just means like, hey, it's usually the most affordable, it's widely available, and it's, maximized muscle protein synthesis. Then we have soy protein, there's pea protein powders. I've seen egg white protein powders. There's rice protein powders. There's
insect protein powders.
Oh,
Did you know that?
Cricket flour.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of different options for you. And I would encourage, if you're unsure and you need to look into some information on that, I mean, you're welcome to message Michael or I and just say like, hey, this is my circumstance. I'm just curious if you have any to recommend. I'm not tied to any specific companies. And so I will just put that out there that I can, happily help with plant-based or non-plant-based protein recommendations. One more thing to look at with supplements is in general is the safety and the third party evaluation of those supplements. So there are some reputable third parties that look at supplements and test them and screen them and make sure that the supplement integrity is there. So what they say is on their label is actually what's in the supplement in the amounts that they say, that they haven't found any banned substances for those elite athletes that are worried, or NCAA athletes that are worried about contamination. So NSF International is one of them. And you can Google these, or I'll include links to these agencies in our show notes so you can do further investigation. So NSF International is one. It's a non-governmental organization that tests supplements and has a whole list on their website. And they have a seal that goes on the supplement itself. Yeah. Informed Choice is another one. So that's another third-party agency that makes sure that supplements are safe for sport, so that the athlete taking the supplement, it basically says like, this has been tested by our labs and we know that it has this amount of product in it. There's the USP, which is the US Pharmacopoeia, which also tests, that's more like vitamin and mineral industry. I think they probably do some like powders and supplement, what am I trying to say? Protein supplements and that kind of thing. But the USP, you'll often see on vitamin and mineral supplements, they have a seal that they put on there. So I'll include that link as well. But there's just a few examples of third parties that are trying to do the screening process for you and will help with you making an informed choice.
Yeah. Okay. You want to talk BCAAs?
Sure.
All right. So, okay, go ahead.
Really enthused.
So BCAAs are branched chain amino acids, and essentially this is getting in amino acids. You get amino acids from protein, right? And this is essentially getting those in, right? From a supplement source. So my thought on BCAAs is that they're really expensive water. And I think they, in my opinion, I think they are one of the most unnecessarily overused supplements. I don't think they are invalid across the board, but I think for the most part, I think people probably don't need to be taking them, because honestly, if you're getting a good amount of protein in your day on a regular basis, you're probably fine. So if you're meeting your protein markers, you're probably good. And you don't really need to be taking this stuff. So I think in situations where like endurance athletes, someone like 2 a days, there may be some benefits in getting some of this in from a very quick and easy source. But for the most part, for your average person, my recommendation would be like, hey, let's bump up your protein and you're going to be fine.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's important that you get these branched chain amino acids from intact protein sources. Now, there's 3 BCAAs. There's isoleucine, leucine, and valine. Leucine is considered a rate limiter when it comes to muscle protein synthesis, meaning if you don't have enough leucine, your body isn't able to maximize that muscle protein synthesis. Now, we're talking about maximize, people. For the average person, we don't have to worry about that. That is not something of concern. And most people with a varied, balanced diet are going to get enough leucine. So we do not have to worry about supplementing that leucine. I had mentioned there's some research in menopausal, perimenopausal women that is particularly that leucine, but a branched chain amino acid complex can actually help mitigate some of that lack of estrogen. So there is some evidence there. To my knowledge, there is no downside. There's no health risk of taking a BCAA supplement as long as it is purely a BCAA supplement. So that's something just to consider. I throw that out there and I kind of present some of the evidence and present it as an option. I don't say like, start taking your BCAA. I'm more like, hey, are you interested in this? Do you want to learn more? Here's some listening or some reading on the subject. I'm happy to investigate any further questions you have, and you can make that decision for yourself. But I would agree with you for, the vast majority of people that are taking that BCAA, and you might argue with us. You might be taking it and be like, I know that it's helped me with my, max, my 1 rep max. Okay, fine. Do your thing. It's unlikely to cause any harm other than to your pocketbook. So,
yeah. Okay.
So let's see. What else? Do you want to move on to like specific vitamin and mineral kind of stuff? Because there's one in here. So oftentimes people will ask me, do I recommend any specific supplements? Well, we talked about protein. That's one that I might recommend depending on the person. Fish oil or omega-3s, I don't do a ton of recommendations in that area. I encourage people to talk with their doctor about it. Especially men in that prostate cancer risk range, because there was a couple studies, I think years ago, that the evidence is flimsy, but I still feel like that's a little out of my scope to be dabbling in there. An omega-3 supplement is very unlikely to cause any issues, but you will get a better benefit from eating the fatty fish, actually. Right. So eat the fish, you guys. Find 100%. A way. Vitamin D is something across the board. I'm pretty much in favor of just about anyone taking a vitamin D supplement. And that's because we have seen in recent years, as vitamin D gets more attention, we've seen that a lot of people have insufficient vitamin D levels, even if they get regular sun exposure, even if they're drinking enough milk and, eating fatty fish and other sources of vitamin D. But approximately 42% of Americans are deficient in vitamin D. And we're also finding that it acts more as a hormone than a vitamin. I mean, it is a fat soluble vitamin or substance. And so, there are upper limits, but we're finding that those upper limits are far beyond what we used to think for like an upper limit. So a lot of the literature says, taking like 400 to 800 IU. So that's international units. A day is good. I know some people take 1,000. I know some people take 2,000 a day. That's something, again, I'd say talk with your doctor about it, do your own research. And I'm happy to send you some more information on vitamin D if you have questions, but that is one that I am usually on board with. Like, okay, let's try a vitamin D supplement.
Yeah. I'm okay with like a green supplement. I don't think it's, something that people should rely on, like, oh, I'm going to get my veggies through a green supplement. But I think if you're having like a protein shake and you have one you like, I mean, if you throw that, sure, like that's not going to hurt you, it might fill in some gaps. And so I think that can be beneficial, especially if someone has a hard time getting, a good amount of vegetables in. It's not, and we can just say this across the board. I think like any supplementation that, even if we're like, it might not be a bad idea, like from the actual source is your best option always, getting this stuff from real whole foods is the way to go. Some of these things are more challenging. Some people have more challenges getting in specific things, for whatever variety of reasons. And sometimes that is like, people just have a hard time with vegetables. I've had a few clients that are just like, I hate them all, and I really struggle to eat them. And it's like, okay, let's work on that. But in the meantime, sure, throw a green supplement in your shake. I think it can
it's unlikely to cause any harm if it just has, I mean, especially if you can read through the ingredients and it's like beetroot powder and celery powder and spirulina and all this other stuff. So
yeah. So that's another one that I think can be beneficial. I don't ever recommend it. Like I would recommend, let's get some more vegetables and fruits in your diet. Let's figure out how to do that. But if someone's like, hey, what do you think about this? Okay, let's check out that specific one. And if it looks like it's quality, sure. If you like it, cool. It's not going to hurt you. And it may be some added benefit, you know?
Yeah.
But one thing to keep in mind, I think real quick, it's a bit of a sidetrack, but like if we start relying on like protein powder and a multivitamin and fish oil and, you know, a green supplement and all this stuff in a supplement way, like one, it's not necessary. We can get this stuff through just the foods we eat. And this can get really expensive unnecessarily. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it can get real expensive real quick. If you're taking all that stuff every day, I mean, you might be spending a couple $100 on supplements a month, easy, if not more. And it's not necessary. You know what I mean? Or it's in general, not necessary. We can get this stuff through just like, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we don't need to spend all this money on this stuff. So that's something to think about too, is like, even if you feel like this might be beneficial or it's easy, is it worth it? Because it, you know, as far as from a financial side, it's probably not something you have to be doing.
Right. Yeah. And I know some people that just start taking supplements because, so for example, some athletes suspect they have low iron. And so they'll just start taking an iron supplement because their friend maybe had low iron and says, oh, I started taking these iron drops and they work really well. or like, you know, someone, starts taking a calcium supplement because they are an avid runner and they're worried they're going to get a stress fracture or something like that. And I will encounter these people and be like, oh, because if anything, I hope you all have learned listening to this podcast is that supplements are certainly not benign. So even though it's a component you get in food, supplement form of a lot of these different compounds is handled differently in the body, and the dosages are higher than what you would get in a food source. So I'm very much a food first kind of person. Hello, I'm a dietitian. That's what I do. And I'm very much in the camp of let's kind of test your levels and make sure that this is appropriate supplementation for you versus just hitting it through food alone. And often there's some very simple adjustments that can be made to a person's diet. I have a client that I'm working with right now who's an athlete, and she had like borderline low ferritin. And so her iron showed up. It wasn't clinically low, but for athletes, it was just low enough that like, hey, we, you know, want to pay attention to this. We've made some very simple adjustments focusing on some of those higher iron sources, combining iron with a vitamin C source for maximal absorption, that kind of stuff to really enhance iron absorption. And then we'll follow up with some lab values and see how they help. But anyway, I want to throw that out there too, that, you know, it's not great to just start taking supplements because you think it's going to help you. You know?
And to piggyback on that, like you can take too much of vitamins, you know,
totally.
stuff like there can be negative effects from having too much of these things. And so to just assume like, oh, like, you know, like I need more, you know, vitamin B or vitamin C, so I'll just take a shit ton of it. Oh, okay. This could actually backfire and have some very negative consequences. So it's not just, you know, more is better. Like Aaron said earlier, like, you know, the dose makes the poison, and everything is toxic at some level. And you get too much of this stuff, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. So it's important that you know kind of where you're at. And if you're going to start supplementing with some of the stuff, that you have an idea of where you're at, not just thinking like, oh, it's good for me, so I'll just take a bunch.
Yeah. One last one, because it was the most popular Google search in that one study that we highlighted earlier. I want to talk real quick about magnesium. I take a magnesium citrate supplement. There's magnesium citrate and is it sulfate, I think is the other form. The citrate is a little bit easier to digest. It's more bioavailable. So that's the one that I usually steer people toward. But magnesium can be helpful with, you know, muscle contraction and preventing muscle cramps. People find it helpful with sleep. People find it helpful for bowel movements, regularity. So, and magnesium, you obviously can get it from food. You can get it from nuts and beans and, you know, variety of vegetables and fortified grain products. So there's a lot of different ways to get magnesium. You don't have to take a supplement. I think for many athletes I work with, I will look at the integrity of their diet and talk with them about the option. Again, it's optional. Here's something that in a safe dose that the literature supports in the form that the literature supports. And it doesn't have to be some like again, proprietary blend. It could just be something you find, in the grocery store or pharmacy. So yeah, magnesium is something that is, I would say, it's not super common for me to recommend that. I'd probably say like, I don't know,
Either.
1 in 5 or 6 clients, I might talk with them about magnesium and trying that, just depending on their diet integrity and maybe some of the symptoms they talk about.
Yeah. And I guess last thing I want to say, just to kind of, again, piggyback on your point, is like, this is the thing about the supplement industry is just virtually anything you can get in supplement form, you can get in food form. Right. And so,
right.
And so,
or not, if it's not safe to eat.
Well, true. Right. This is true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what happened, like something like magnesium, there are absolute benefits to having magnesium in your body. The best way to do that is to get it through your diet. So what the supplement industry does is they see benefits of certain compounds, whatever. And, so let's make that just a specific thing, isolate that and sell that as these benefits. And what a lot of people don't understand is like, I should be taking magnesium. I should be taking this. And it's like, you get that stuff in your food. Like this isn't the only way to get it. And there's this assumption that the only way we get this stuff is through the supplements. Well, I know I need to sleep better. Should I be taking magnesium? And it's like, well, what if you just eat some more magnesium rich foods? And so most of the time with a lot of these supplements, it's that scam kind of thing, right? Like you need magnesium because here are the benefits. So buy our product. And it's like, no, just eat more of this stuff and you're probably going to be fine. So just something to put out there.
And
that's my
foods,
final word.
I love your final word. And I think this is a nice little bow to put on this, Michael, is that foods have not just that specific component. Yes, you're looking specifically at high magnesium foods, and I'm happy to put a resource in the show notes. So y'all know magnesium foods, vitamin D foods, some of the things we've talked about here. Those foods also have a number of other nutrients, whether it's fiber, other vitamins, other minerals, healthy fat profiles. I mean, there's phytonutrients. There's a number of other things you're getting from those foods. And the research largely leans on, hey, people, there's a symbiotic relationship that happens within the food because of the components made up therein. So it's more than just getting that specific nutrient. It's the way your body integrates that combination of nutrients, that full package. Absolutely. So keep that in mind when you're moving forward and you are investigating any of these supplements. Take a look at some of the foods that are high in those things and that could maybe fill in some other gaps in your diet as well and be more enjoyable than maybe, like popping a pill or swigging some powder or whatever it is people do.
A scoop of powder in your mouth.
Yeah. Gross.
All right.
Okay. Meeting in the mundane.
Yeah, I have one.
What
it was
you got?
This morning. It was this morning. So, and I loved this. So, after breakfast, Kathleen took Lila to school. I was here with Sophie, and she just on her little, Alexa dot, whatever, Echo dot, whatever it is. She was like, Alexa, play some song that she likes to play a lot. And it's this kind of slow, pretty song. And she's like, Daddy, you want to dance? And I was like, yeah. So I just scooped her up in my arms and we just kind of slow danced in the kitchen for a little while. And then she wanted me to put her down. She's like, Daddy, do what I do. And she was doing like these slow, like ballet moves. And we were doing this in the kitchen. And it was just this nice little start to the morning of, just connecting with her and spending time with her and joining her and what she loves and getting to hold her. And it was a really good start to the day. So that was mine.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
That was awesome. Good. How about you?
So mine was just this simple, bike ride into the foothills last week to meet some friends. And I ride from my house, I ride along the river to get into the foothills in Boise. And I'm looking out the river and I see all these duck butts sticking straight up in the air. You know how the ducks, the mallard ducks especially, go looking for food. And so they just stick their butts straight up in the air. And there were like 4 or 5 in this little area all together with their butts just straight up in the air. And I literally laughed out loud. I'm just riding my bike down the Greenbelt and I'm laughing because I'm just like, how funny these little butts just sticking up in the air. And I'm sure anybody that saw me, have you ever had those moments where you just laugh out loud? Like nobody else is around to laugh with you or share that moment with you, but you're just like, that's too funny. And so this laugh just comes out inadvertently. That was mine. I'm like, it's really fun to just laugh out loud sometimes because you can't help it.
Yes, it is.
Something so simple that makes you laugh. So
I like it.
That was mine.
Nice. Duck butts.
Very simple. Duck butts. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone,
for listening, for watching.
Listening. Yeah.
We appreciate it.
I feel like we're talking over each other and saying the same things.
Well, now you're copying me.
No, sorry. Okay. Take it away, Michael.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your what do you call it? Your viewership, your listenership, you paying attention, listening to what we're doing. As always, feel free to give us a review, give us a rating, subscribe, on Apple Podcasts, all the podcast places, on YouTube, and share with a friend. Help us spread the message of Middleish.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.